Hi, this is Mark. In this video, I'm going to talk about why I believe in God's existence. I'm not going to get into any scientific, base it on scientific claims, and I'm not going to base it on other religions. I kind of go with the premise that society as a whole, we have this, I like to think of it as a flow of information today is so vast. There's so many streams of information, so many different channels of information, so many pathways that are connected to other pathways. The linkage, it's like a spider web going globally, and so many different nodes are getting closer and closer together. And it's almost seems if you go far away in the distance, it seems like it's a continuous three-dimensional function that has no gaps in between. But as you come closer, of course, they become exposed. And that's just due to the vastness of transport. And this is partly attributed to why there's more division, more groups, more potential for argument, or more potential for debates. We create our own belief systems. There's more belief systems than ever before. And I like to start with the progression of the artificial world that we live in. It started with a point, and as it's interesting in the beginning, if you start in the initial point where nature was very vast, um, the field of science at that point was not developed at all. But during that phase of life, there was a lot of open ideas were open in the air. They were just open speculation and conjectures, a lot of hypotheses. It was all in the background, and this is like a where chaos like you have chaos, or you have matter that is not yet compartmentalized or not yet organized. But then over time, it became organized, and we formulated theories. And the strength of the bond of the theories is dependent on how many connections are made. It's how many bridges between fields and how much information or wealth of information that we have to validate it. But over time, it just got so dispersed. Now we're in a stage of such high degree of development that it seems like the information is we could take it in multiple different ways. The interesting thing is it's almost as if the artificial world overshadows what exists. It's like it encompasses its own global world that seems so vast, yet is also very much a speck of dust that exists in the universe. It's not as vast, and we don't even know the potential for the field. We have an outer boundary that exists. The realm of science is an outer boundary that is moving in the direction towards infinity, and it's expanding. And as it expands, we kind of become immersed into, and basically we start living in the artificial world, and we kind of depart away from nature. It's easier to depart when artificial world takes over the whole global, like Earth. If it took over the entirety of Earth, we're going to take on the properties of the technology itself. We're going to basically converge, and not that we're going to become cyborgs, but there is clear um, indication that we are definitely taking on the properties of the technology. For instance, like if you were to do calculations your whole life on a calculator, you would take on the properties of the calculator. Your brain would mold in such a way to, be adept at that task. But your brain, your responses and your communication will be based on the received input, which is from the calculator, and very localized and very limited. But either way, like the reason I do believe in God is because the artificial world that we live in, we don't even know the limits. The bound is it's so small within the it's a such a small fraction of the entirety of the universe. And we can't just believe that when you understand the space of the artificial world, you understand the universe, all the universal law. I mean, it just because if our perception is limited within a bound from the lower bound to the upper bound, and and this bound has expanded as artificial world expanded because we didn't even know subatomic particles and all these existed. Something that was out of our range of perception even existed until we could use technology. So therefore, our range of perception is a subset of the range that is yielded from technological uh, products. So essentially, that's another. We're only a small fraction of that. But then what goes beyond that? It's infinite potential. We don't know what exists in the fringes, and the possibility is always going to exist. So that's kind of where I always believe it's always the possibility that exists, and you can't dispute the existence. You just can't disprove or even prove it just because of our limitation. We're so limited in the field of knowledge. Whether we realize it or not, it's just we don't even know. So that's kind of that's how I take it. But I do not think that you can verify it through science in the artificial world because that due to the range of perception being so limited, we we think we could think we have the answers and we could maybe translate it and use our subconscious and or intuition and make a projection and some type of ideation, but that again is dictated on our own range of perception. It's a function of our range of perception, and therefore that projection is also limited because our range is limited, and therefore we can't make the claims that what we understand can verify it, and therefore it's just waste of energy. So that's just how I take it. I mean, if anyone wants to dispute it or disagree, I mean that's fine. You can put out your comments. I'm always open to it. But I just think in terms of this playing field, it's best to not put emotions into the equation. And when you do have a debate, I just think with beliefs, it's okay. We have the or freedom to believe, have our beliefs and our systems. And anytime I think you have a debate, I guess the best debates are the ones where you're open to the suggestion of others. You take it in. You don't have to agree, of course, but you kind of leverage and come up with new ideas and actually learn. So real debates are just for learning purposes, maybe expanding the knowledge, and potentially you could always dispose of a theory or dispose of anything once new evidence arises. So I notice that like those who have the tendency or who are atheists, they tend to they latch onto the evidence. So their premise is yes, I won't believe unless the evidence presents itself of the existence, which it's fine to go in that direction. That's just like and then you can have the skeptics who are always like they don't really want to have a firm objective belief, but they're always skeptical and leads to always open to the possibility. And I think atheists are still, of course, I think still open to it. It's just that based on the way that they view it is it won't become an actuality, or it won't be part of their belief, or their they won't take it as truth unless it's presented as scientific or it's shown verifiable or validated by the field of science. And of course, I think yes, as the field of science expands, we can try to get closer and closer and closer. But I just think we're never going to get there, um, because of our limited range, and we don't understand the macro side of things. The macro dimensions that are beyond, because we can go down to the micro level, but to go to the macro level is quite a takes a tremendous amount of energy and the frequency where it's out of our frequency range. But yeah, that's just my beliefs, and uh, yeah, that's all I have right now, and I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next